quite a wedding destination resort.
Yes.
And hence we play a quite active role over there. Almost 30% of our revenue is associated with corporates and 30% is weddings.
Yeah.
But
how come? What is the thing with wedding?
So we operate 6 resorts. So I play a role in hospitality. We operate 6 resorts.
Okay.
We operate an adventure park, and we also operate counterterrorism training academy for civilians.
Wow.
It's a military themed resort. I think you will love it. One day I should, after this chat, I should exchange numbers and send you all an invite. It's in the forest. It's a military. So we've got Lieutenant General of Indian Army who's retired, who's leading the team, and we conduct training programs for civilians and corporates on counterterrorism activities, jungle survival, and survival techniques. And we've designed the whole resort with tents and shipping containers, but in a super uber luxury manner. So it's like a 5-star plus standard within the forest. The room formats are it's a nice property. You'll love it.
Is there an age group for minimum age?
No.
Okay,
it's meant for the whole family, but
excellent.
Yeah, very small kids can't really do
yeah, of course, like,
and
but 16-17-year-olds can
even 8-9-year-old should go through it, because when there's a terrorist attack or there's a shooter, they don't look at the age and attack. So they I mean, if your child is going to start crying at that point in time, not only will the child die, but all of you will die. So anyway, it's interesting. You must check it out. I will take your numbers through the moderator, and I'll exchange.
No,
okay, guys. I think we are live.
Hello, Mr. Choksi.
Hi.
I'm Sean. Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Hello everybody.
Mr. Arjun has also joined. Okay.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone. Hi Rico.
Hello.
Hey, hi Uncle. Long time.
Long time, yeah.
So we were just talking. Hi Arjun.
Hey, how's it going? Hi everyone.
Hi Arjun. Hi Raghu here.
Hi guys. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I think Mr. Raman.
Hi Sean.
Is on
Good
his
evening.
way.
Hello. Hi.
So Mr. Raman Sekka is awaited. Okay. He's logging in. So before you checked in, Architect Ankur and Rahul and Sean, we were just talking about how many businesses Mr. Jimmy Mistry is able to manage, and suddenly he's changing off gear within half an hour to so many diverse set of business. We were just
we should get the focus back. We should get the focus back to the talk and get me out of it. Hey Arjun, how are you? How is that?
Oh well, he's good. Relaxing, staring at the sea. There's lots of reading and writing.
You guys are in Lonavala or in Bombay?
Unfortunately in Bombay, but it's not bad. We're on the sea, and in fact, I think about 45 minutes from now, we're expecting a school of dolphins that's been coming to the shore every day at the same time, and a couple of flips and jumps out of the water, and the whole building lines up on their balconies. So can't complain.
Super, huh? See how nature has turned itself around, huh?
I know, it's healing beautifully. I think once our parasitic influence stops, nature starts to heal quite quickly.
The only thing is that we should remember this, because if we forget about it and then go back to our daily lives, then it'll be sad. So let us see. Let's hope that these things are retained to some extent.
Let's hope the economy is retained, so we all have jobs. And
Let's start with that. Yeah, let's start.
That's the most critical part.
I know.
So I think meanwhile, Mr. Sekka joins in. We can start, and I think he's about to join. But so thank you, everyone here, and thank you people who are in the audience. Thank you so much for making it here today. Very good afternoon, good evening, and everyone out here in panel as well as in the audience again to join this webinar on behalf of Insight Content Platform in association with Johnson Tyres. I welcome you to the opening episode of Reboot and Refresh series of webinars. My name is Dinesh Vyas, and I, apart from being closely associated with Insight, I head marketing for H&R Johnson India. Thank you, audience, once again. And you are encouraged to keep on sending your comments and questions that will make this entire session very interactive. It has been over 2 months, and it is the first time, and perhaps last time too, that we got a long forced break from our work schedules. And of course, not without a reason. These lockdowns are to safeguard ourselves and the society at large. We fully acknowledge the situation, have our empathy and sympathy for all the troubled people and also those who have and who are suffering due to some ongoing issues and due to this pandemic. The topic of the webinar is reboot and refresh, but important is not the topic. Important is the list of panelists first. All of these eminent people belong to the fraternity of creators, creators of man-made and curated spaces, mostly for human beings. I also heard some of them during this break are also thought for making space for some extraterrestrial people. Who knows? And creativity has got no limits, and who knows that they might have some client to support, and who knows that they also have planned to use tiles in those huge floors. So thank you all for coming. And Johnson makes one of the best in class tiles for this world, and we hope that they will make for the next world also. We are talking about the panelists, so let me acknowledge that there's one fact that almost all basic fundamentals will not change post-COVID, and one of the things that is not going to change is this formality of introducing the people who don't need any introduction. So with your permission, I can go alphabetical order and just complete this formality to announce peoples who have come with all your yeah, everybody's okay. I see. Yeah, Ruturaj. Okay, ठीक है. So this is addressed to the audience, and starting in alphabetical order, we have architect Ankur Choksi from Studio Lotus, Delhi. Their part of vision is that design process should look at sustainability, though through the multiple lenses of culture, social, and environmental impact. We have the young and handsome architect Arjun Malik from Malik Architecture, Mumbai. His firm again has a wide spectrum and true to the statement that the firm takes on anything from a doorknob to an urban master plan. Next to him is architect C.S. Raghuram from the CRN Consultants, Chennai. For the benefit of audience, let me tell that the firm CRN was founded before the independence in 1945 and has been creating built spaces with lasting impact in diverse sectors of industries, corporate, residential, commercial, mixed use, and infrastructure. As we were talking about, we have Mr. Jimmy Mistry, Chief of Della Group, design to real estate, to adventure, to retail, to interior shopping, designer, entrepreneur, everything. Mr. Raman Sikka is awaited. He'll be joining. And we have architect Sean Siksen Gupta, director of Edifice Consultants Private Limited. Again, a very well-known entity taking up variety of projects, wellness to sustainability and residential to infrastructure in different geographies. So welcome all of you. Thank you very much for allocating some time for this webinar. And as the topic is, when we have architect Ruturaj representing Inside. Inside is our a content platform. He will talk about it little later, but without losing much time. Once again, let me thank the audience being there. And again, as I say, we encourage you to interact with all the panelists. You have chat and you have Q&A built-in facility here. So with this, my first thing will go to architect Arjun. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Arjun, it might have been like a forced break for you also. I mean, say almost two months, and it could have definitely, it is unprecedented. But itna break milega ye to nahi socha hoga. So how was it? How was the real experience? And the people are really waiting to listen from you, and then we'll come to the ideas and more formal part of it.
I think you used the word break. It's not a break at all. I suppose that's a good thing. We've been actually, continuing with our work, trying our best to stay in touch, to find new ways of engaging both internally as well as with all the stakeholders in our projects. But I think side by side, obviously, it's the situation has changed. I think we can't deny that. Without sounding callous, right? I think there's a lot of people at a very large scale who are suffering substantially in this situation. So my heart goes out to them, and I think individually and collectively, we can try and do our bit, both within our more contained ecosystems as well as perhaps reaching out a little bit further to help those who are less privileged. But apart from that, I could live like this, right? I think there are certain activities and engagements that we cannot take out of the so-called workspace. There are certain obstacles to fluid movement, but otherwise, I'm actually quite happy with the situation. I guess our hand has been forced, but I think the adaptation has been a lot smoother than one would have expected. And it's giving us time to, I think everyone will be on the same page, time with family, less time spent on crowded streets. Nature is healing. Day by day, the sea's gotten a little bit bluer, the sky's gotten bluer, the air's gotten a bit cleaner, noise levels have gone down. So I don't know what new revelations we are looking at here, but I certainly think that issues that existed and have existed for a long time have just simply come into sharper focus, which I think is something that we need to acknowledge. Otherwise, if you told me for the next 6 months, I need to be working like this, I'm sure we can find a way to do it. But as I said, there are far more widespread implications of this situation, which is beyond, the continuity of a practice or anything like that, for that matter.
Great to hear. So adaptation has been very smooth. And Architect Ankur Choksey, you would like to add something on this, please?
Yeah, so just taking off from what Arjun was talking about, for us also, it's been, we've found ways to kind of work in a different manner, working from home and kind of bridging things between screens. But I think what he ended the conversation with is something that looks exciting as we look forward, that this whole situation has created a sort of, it's almost like a reset button that's been pressed. It's given us an opportunity to really look at everything. So even from the way we work, we've got opportunities to question what is the work environment and what does it need to do, what is a physical space versus what the virtual kind of environment allows us to do. And in the larger sense, even the kind of decisions we make in terms of consumption, in terms of how we go about building in the future. I think those are the things that come up to our mind at this point, looking at the way such a short period has impacted, the environment, and there is a chance to kind of rebuild it or regenerate it. And what are we going to do about it is something that comes up.
Yeah. And I believe things would not have been quite different at Chennai. Architect Raghuram, we were speaking the other day, and a lot of even new initiatives started. I'd like to talk about those, and then we'll.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity. Am I audible? Is
yes,
clear? Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for this opportunity. One of the things that really has been in this lockdown is that really how unimportant we individually are. I mean, if we look at, architects generally, and many professionals have this heightened sense of self-importance. And really, one of the things that has been an eye-opener is that really we are just one factor in a larger scheme of things. And if only all of these things fit together in a seamless way, do we really have, a sustainable ecosystem. So that was actually one thing. I've learned a lot of discipline during these days. I thought work from home was easy. It is actually not. You really need to have a lot of discipline. we've had our challenges in terms of sustaining or keeping the business running because, we have a lot of mouths to feed. Allaying the fears of the people who we work with, that was a significant thing. But cutting across and just stepping out of my comfort zone, I've been working on an interesting project with the University of Cambridge, which tries to retrofit larger marriage halls or exhibition centers into COVID wards, and retrofitting and also bringing in a separate air conditioning and a ventilation system for it. So that's been an eye opener, and how that actually we as architects can actually step out of our comfort zone and try to make a real difference to the society around us.
And now moving on, let's hear out from Jimmy Mistry. We were just talking about you. There's so many of diverse activities. Definitely, I think you could have been in position to focus on some new things, or maybe there's so many pending things for you, sir.
Well, like everybody, we also went through the same. The first couple of weeks, it was okay. It was a good break, and we were trying to understand how do we press the reset button and how do we quickly recalibrate. Next couple of weeks for us have gone as an organization, because we are into diverse businesses besides design. We're into manufacturing and hospitality. We've gone into deep learning, and we spent, I think, about 6 weeks of hardcore learning with about 150 of us getting involved with the finest of trainers. This we could have never done with such a peace of mind across, which is nice. However, we have done it with a very clear intent, and it's going to help us with our design career as well, because I personally believe that this kind of a pandemic has stolen our soul, has shaken up our soul completely. It's a calamity where nothing really has changed around us. With this pandemic, the only thing that's changed, and the only thing that's really made a difference is us. Streets are same, businesses are going to look the same physically. Nothing is going to change. It's not a man-made calamity. It's not a flood. It's not an earthquake. So keeping that in mind, emotionally, every single human being has been tormented. It's going to go through a sea change. So spending patterns are going to change. Human behavior is going to change. VM is going to change. It's going to be very, very dynamic. Hospitality is going to change. Customer relations, whole user experience in any line of business per se for design, it's going to change. It's no longer going to be the same. And the sooner we try and get into this human science of anthropology and understand the mindset, the better we'll be able to respond as designers. The sooner we don our empathetic design thinking hats and try and work out solutions, so we as designers become more problem solvers, is one statement that I've been repeating very common, and become solution providers, because the economy needs to kickstart. We are already way behind the world by a couple of weeks. Indian economy is not a first world country. It will not be able to sustain no matter what packages have been announced. On ground reality remains very, very grim. Hospitality industry has been left with a big thenga. Zero has been made available. 5 out of 10 restaurants are going to shut down if things don't really alter. So all this is going to make a big difference on entire human psyche. And it is the job of the designers to take this time off, understand it, and think how, using design thinking and empathy, we're going to respond back.
That's quite elaborate. Yes. And ma'am, you are a unique panelist here, because apart from being an architect and like everybody else, but you are a woman also. How these 2 months have been for you, and then it's about, yeah.
Well, firstly, I mean, I do not take gender-specific comments to it, putting it very plainly. So it shouldn't be any different whether I'm a woman or a man, and I don't think it has been either. So we've been very busy, and these are unprecedented times, and it has been extremely challenging for us to kind of manage the busyness that is there, because it's a different kind of busyness that we are into. And we are actually in a very technologically advanced, interconnected society, and our technology and interconnection and internet and all of that has really got stretched, and it has kind of got challenged a lot, because that's the thread that we are holding on to. So it's really put science and technology in the forefront of everything. What is most unprecedented among all of these things, that we've taken recourse more to science and technology than. We don't have temples open, we don't have mosques open, we don't have gurdwaras open, and we are all living our lives really very well. And we think that science and technology is holding our society kind of together. So that's one very important output that has come out of this whole COVID situation that we are into. The second thing that has really come forward is, I think one of the earlier panelists also mentioned, that what really is important for us, in terms of human beings, what sustains us, what is important. It's given us a forced, time to think. So I think we are all rebooting our minds. We are all rethinking. We are all re-innovating, relearning. And it's a huge blessing in disguise. I mean, it's not the right word to use in this kind of a situation, but I think we've all been pushed to this corner to really rethink and come back on what things are. And it's like a shake-up that is there, and it's forced us to rethink things, which is a nice thing that has happened in the background of the pandemic situation, which is obviously not the best situation to push us to the brim of things. But yes, it is really made us innovate a lot. And frankly speaking, we are all sitting at home and we've not had major issues with doing our design activities. But having said that, we've been able to really been very productive as an organization. We've all, before the shutdown happened, we shifted our systems, we got our servers connected, and we're all smugly working sitting at home and working. And a big thumbs up and a big thank you to the base work that is being done by the various sectors which are creating the situation where all of us can so smugly sit at home and keep working and earning our daily bread, even though this kind of an unprecedented situation is going on. So a very big thank you to those lifesavers that are there on the ground, that I still get my milk at hand, I still get my veggies, I still am protected, I still am getting my medicine. So obviously there are lakhs of people out there on the road bracing the unprecedented situation to make sure that all of us are sitting at home and are able to work. But being in the lockdown, thank you to technology, and a really big thumbs up to technology and our service providers, that we are able to sit at home and really without any kind of disruption, we are able to do our work to the hilt, to our 100%. Our output has been really great through the last few months. It's been enormous, and I really thank the support system that is there in the country to let us be able to do that.
So true, and really we all join you to thank all those people who have still made us to work and to survive and to sustain and still able to remain productive. We have been now joined by architect Raman Sikka. Sir, namaskar, very warm welcome to you. For the benefit of audience, you already know him. Architect Raman Sikka is from Sikka Associates and Architects, multidisciplinary firm. The mission of the firm is live by design, and architect Raman gives a lot of emphasis on environment and sustainability. My question to you, Arjun, is something related to this. Last 2 months we have seen a lot of discussions going on what all will change post COVID, including, and design was also not touched. But in last 3-4 webinars we had interacted with a lot of leading architects also, and one thing was there ki, okay, perhaps architect and interior designing, this whole community has already been talking about these things. It's not hygiene is new. For example, hospitality industry, I don't think any other industry will be as hygienic as hospitality. I mean to say on the scale rating level. Similarly, you have been talking about sustainability, environment, safety, everything was there. So was there any knee-jerk reaction that what is going to change? Is anything going to change except for those safety measures, except for those what you call as social or physical distancing or hygiene, which I consider as a part of behavior, not really as a design. My question to you, Arjun, is what exactly is there anything going to change? I mean to say, or is there any new idea that you might have come up during this thing?
Dineshji, I think there are a couple of ways to look at this. We can either look at kind of short-term reactivity and look at the tip of our nose in terms of the impact of this situation, right? Which is, I think people talk about social distancing. There are also going to be certain technological aspects with regards to materials, filtration systems. I think that seems to be the general information coming out of the healthcare industry, which is essentially obviously at the vanguard of dealing with this crisis, right? I'm not going to get pulled into discussions of this width. I think if something is going to change, I sometimes, well, call me a bit of a cynic, but if something has to change, and I'm not sure it's going to change, it is going to be the entire, it's going to be human consciousness, right? Because this situation was coming. I think it's just a trigger that brings into stark focus what we were already hurtling towards in terms of unsustainable consumption. And I think at least from our perspective, and even though I live in a city, I can tell you that I don't like living in a city, right? And everybody tells you that it's the energy of Bombay and it's all of these wonderful things, which they are. But at a very personal level, you're now starting to realize that your dependency on the city, right, isn't as much as one may have thought earlier. So given a choice, I would get the hell out of the city as soon as I can. But I think the serious question is going to be about even the viability of a city, because we've constantly been talking about densification. We've been talking about economy of density, economy of infrastructure, right? But look at the problems it's created. Look at what density has done to us. We have completely separated our production and our supply from our consumption. We have no sense of self-contained sustainable networks. We have no idea of disaster management. Our public spending is completely skewed, right? There were basic ideas of decentralization that have been talked about, just post-independence, of develop lots and lots of self-sustainable nodes all over the country. Instead, we've gone down the exact opposite route, and this was inevitable, right? So rather than look at short-term solutions of what we're going to do in terms of making people sit at alternate desks and putting HEPA filters into our air conditioning systems and put thermal scanners and all those kind of things, I think this is the moment when Ankur talked about a reset. This is, I think, a time for us to reset our consciousness. Otherwise, this is just going. I know they say that these pandemics happen once every 100 or 150 years, but I'm not sure that's the case. If we look at the number of natural disasters and the regularity of occurrence, let's say over the last 2 or 3 decades, we understand now very clearly that we are out of sync with our environment, right? We have overburdened our planet. Our ways of living, our ways of consumption and expansion are unsustainable. This is going to happen more often than I think we would expect. So unless we are able to recalibrate, and from the individual level, it has to start from the single person, each person changing their consciousness, their way of living, taking active steps. I don't think anything is really going to make a difference in the long run if we are not able to really ask those difficult questions.
But to be very frank, and at the cost of, do you really think it's happening, or still we are just talking, or is a knee-jerk reaction that we started talking? Anything you see on the move?
I think, look, it starts at. I see a lot of people that I talk to right now are again questioning their entire place of domicile. And I don't think this is in terms of pure escapism or running away from a situation. Mm-hmm. I think people are realizing more and more that technology has enabled different modes of engagement, right? I'm personally not a social media person. I have Facebook and Instagram accounts, but I've never posted on them, in 7 years. So I'm also a very face-to-face person, and I think the process of estrangement had already started. I don't think social distancing is anything new. We'd already lost each other, right? I think a lot of people are considering moving out of cities, and I'm talking about across all economic strata. We've already seen, and I'm sorry to say, at the absolute bottom of the food chain, our daily wage laborers, the migrant labor, the exodus has already happened. I don't know if they're going to return. I think the general thing is that, we'll back in the villages, we'll still get our sukha roti, and we may not have that much resource, but at least there is some mode of sustenance, and we do not have to subject ourselves to the trauma, because I think this is going to leave deep scars on people who have been left completely rootless without any mode of sustenance. And I think they've been, it's almost like, as far as our government is concerned, it's almost like they don't exist. They've just been left to languish. I think these are going to leave deep-rooted scars. So I think across all strata, right, we are going to see a very different attitude towards how we live in our cities, how we inhabit our cities. And we really need to be decongesting. This is the time. Bombay is a desperate situation right now, right? Our slums, our informal settlements have been the absolute heart of the crisis over here. And now we know that, this public-private partnership of the SRA scheme, we already knew it was a failed endeavor, but now it comes into stark focus. This is not a sustainable way of dealing with huge number of people who've been crowded into small areas. This requires massive, massive legislative rethinks. And for that, I think people on this panel and people like us need to also step out of our, shall we say, limited engagement with the environment and with the industry, and start looking at methods of advocacy where we are able to insert ourselves into, I think, decision-making processes, which I think have a larger impact and a larger bearing on our social, cultural, and geographical environments.
Well said, well said. So it's concerned with people. It's also concerned with process. Before I moved to architect Raghuram, and I was talking to him about the technology and construction, a lot of new things, and some way it also addresses what you just said. Okay, look at the people going back to their native places, or people leaving the densified cities. Before that, I would like to take the view from Jimmy Mistry, from so many diverse things. Sir, change kya ho raha hai? I mean to say, yeah, kuch thought level pe, what Arjun was saying, at thought level and all those things are happening. How it is going to affect, you think? You have some new ideas where we can, so much of investment has already happened. Suddenly everything may change, everything may not change. What's your estimate about these things?
See, a couple of things that Arjun touched upon, I seem to resonate with the views. Reverse migration is a given. People were coming to the urban land from rural areas because technology was not there in rural areas, telecom was not there. They saw better quality of life for their next generation. They have been a shramik majdoor, or they've been doing farming. Now they thought our children will grow, be educated in cities properly, go to college, learn English, and get white-collar jobs. So that whole dream has come crashing down, because the quality of life over here that they've experienced has been far worse, many levels far worse. The 4 hours of traveling daily for a menial job where he's earning 15,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 rupees. When he's retiring, he's not able to make enough money to get his children get married. He's still paying his loan installments on the house. The house, by the time, with the kind of construction technologies and materials used, is already dilapidated in the last 15-20 years, whatever was constructed. You can look at the condition of the buildings in Vasai, Mira Road, Kandivali, Borivali. I mean, the buildings are not in a great condition. So the reverse migration is a given. This pandemic has only speeded up the process. It's going to be a much faster process now, because people have gone back to their villages, and these people are going to realize that if we are having the same technology available here, at least we have a proper house, we have open spaces, they have a two-wheeler to commute, far better quality of life than a local train or a bus where they're treated like animals. And hence, I firmly believe that reverse migration is going to be the order of the day. Second change, post-pandemic unlocking happening. Yes, people have now begun to accept the fact that certain functions in an office can be done on a remote work. So work from home. So the concepts had come out in 95, 96, Soho, small office, home office. And now those concepts are revisiting us years down the line and decades down the line, where people have really started working from home. I, for one, I've always been used to working from home, no matter whether I'm in Bombay or I'm in Lonavala. Both the places I've got full-fledged facilities at home to work from. But most of the other people who are never working from home and who always wanted to keep work a mile away from their house and not to mix these two things are beginning to enjoy a better quality of life. So even top management executives are now debating and discussing, let's look at the top 5 consultants. All of them are working from home and they're super happy. They're as productive. So it's, yes, in some businesses, face-to-face, like Arjun was saying, face-to-face is very important. But then a lot of the other functions can be done from home. So there'll be a fine balance at some point in time that people will figure out each to himself for the line of profession or business that they are in, what suits them. But Indian mindset of Sasta Sundar Tikau, and if an Indian entrepreneur has his way to reduce the cost, he's in a 10,000 square feet office and he can manage with 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. He's not going to go for 10,000 again. He's going to downsize and downsize very, very rapidly. So that's a given. I can talk to 50 entrepreneur friends around, and I know each one of them are talking about downsizing. They call it removing of the fat. But yes, they're shutting down branch offices. They're shutting down things, reducing the sizes of their offices. As soon as the lease rental is going to be renewed next year, they're already negotiated a 30 to 40% rental decrease right now. But they know these rents will go back in a year's time. So they are downsizing their offices. And this is the time they've got a lot of free time to sit properly and decide processes. So they are actually going through process engineering exercises in each and every organization. So there is disruption happening, and at a very rapid pace. We will see the changes in almost every industry where office goers are there. Of course, when you talk of factories, you talk of agriculture. There's going to be no change across with social distancing happening. Factories, some kind of change will happen. But we also need to realize that most of the production in India happens under the unorganized segment, and you have small industrial units in Parel and Dharavi and Daisars and Borivalis of the world, and all the outskirts of all major metros, not only in Bombay, where people are working out of small galas, and there are 20 people, 25 people working literally in 5 feet distances and working. That's not going to change. They are not going to be able to afford to move into a larger place. Economy is extremely strained. Industries are extremely strained. And the impact is going to be felt. So let me tell you about hospitality and design, because these are the two areas where we have people on the panel from design and hospitality, which I dwell into. All the banking institutions have given blanket approval to stop the project's funding. All projects have to be reevaluated. So to begin with, under the current pandemic situation, the only thing that the owners are going to do or operators are going to do is cut costs, and cut costs is going to happen at the cost of cutting the project cost. So projects will no longer, in terms of financial terms, project will no longer look the same. There will be trimming done, a serious haircut given to it. Fancy frills will be removed for most of the projects. So this is in hospitality, and remaining hotels operating won't know whether they're going to see the light at the other end of the tunnel. People are asking for cash flow statements. How does one prepare a cash flow when you don't know if a guest is going to come to your doorstep or no? Of course, there are trends and patterns across globally. When Italian markets opened up and Spain opened up and Europe opened up and UAE, Dubai is opened up, there can be trends that can be learned from there. There'll be binge shopping, there'll be binge traveling, whatever it is, or there'll be revenge shopping, as they say. But whether it's going to happen in India with Indian mindset, one never knows. And we all are hopeful that yes, we will have traffic back and projects will see the light at the other end of the tunnel, which have been put on a pause right now. But design fraternity has to be ready to go and participate, like I said earlier, become problem solvers. And if the budgets have to be trimmed, how can they be trimmed without compromising on the overall quality and layout? Some amount of human traffic movement changes are going to happen within offices, within the office environment, commercial environment, and hospitality environment. There'll be a lot to learn from the hospital industry. All usage of materials and specifications are going to be derived directly from there. That's a ready reckoner for us as designers. Whatever the hospital industry has been using so far, all those products are going to be welcome first in hospitality, commercial segment, and later at some point in time, it will come in the residential segment. So it's super dynamic. You will see changes almost everywhere. I'm sure at Johnson Tiles, you people are already, your R&D team must be already working on how to make bacteria-free tiles, or how to do things that will be a added layer across onto the tile. So all these disruptions and innovations are already on the way as we speak.
True. Very well said, sir. So very comprehensive thing. And before, as I said, I was speaking to architect Raghuram about the technology and construction. But before that, let me reach out to architect Raman Sikka, sir, who joined little late. Sir, is sustainability में तो human beings भी आ जाते हैं. I mean to say, if you see the kind of employment, the huge employment provided by the construction industry to these migrant labor, I mean to say 40%, 30%, whatever. And the other sustainability going together post COVID, sir. Any new ideas, or if you can want to share something with us, sir?
Thank you for the question. And yes, I was a little late to join. See, I think change definitely is going to be there. Change will be all across. It will be the scale and the ferociousness of the change is going to be very immense. Change always happens, but this time the speed and the scale at which it is happening is what the disruption is all about. But this is also a chance for all of us and for every business to actually think and innovate. Because ultimately all businesses are what? Every business is meant to solve a problem. Now here we have a whole lot of problems thrown up all at once. Whether it is lack of people working at site, as you're asking now, whether it is lack of funds for the project, whether it is lack of requirement of office spaces, whether it is requirement of better workspaces at home. So there'll be all kinds of opportunities, all kinds of different issues. And I think if businesses can identify what are the real new problems, the new issues, the new business opportunities, that is what they have to first identify. That is what they have to then go after. Change is not a bad thing. Change is always going to happen. A pause is also not a bad thing. It's like a landing in a staircase. The issue is how will we use it. Whether we are able to use the pause to actually think what are the things that need to be changed in our businesses also, or in our work, or in the environment around us. Because it is not that we were all doing very perfect things earlier on. See, all these problems that we are seeing, whether it is, as Rajan is saying, pollution in cities, whether it is traffic in cities, whether it is global warming, whether it is pandemics, they are all ultimately caused by our inactions and actions across a lot of time. So all these larger problems are a result of smaller actions that we undertake over a longer time. The sooner we realize that what are the actions that we need to change and how we can change those for our businesses also, that is the direction that we need to take, I feel, in every way. If you talk of construction industry per se, the difference to sites, the difference to design, I think as we see a lack of site labor, so to say, or lack of people available at site, also a lack of certainty of different issues. Like in Delhi, for example, this winter there was a 2.5 month shutdown of construction due to environmental issues, even though labor was there. So all these issues point towards, I think, a more off-site, a more modular, a more prefab construction. And I think that is the direction that people should try and the vendors, the industry, the product manufacturers, they have to think, they have to work towards that. Not only make products sustainable, smart and safe, but also make them off-site.
Thank you so much, sir. There's a question from the audience. I'll just read the question, but before that, I'll go to Architect Raghuram. As a human, we are social creature, but in this situation, how design evolved, where we could work together or act together at the same time, keeping social distance. This is the question. I would pose it to Architect Ankur and Architect Sean later on. But let me first go to Architect C.S. Raghuram. Sir, this technology, construction, manpower, change of thought, and introspection. Architect Raghuram, over to you, sir. Your mic is off, sir. Your microphone is off.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yes, actually, some of my thoughts actually resonate with the other panelists. Just before I get to that aspect of technology, I just want to touch upon one thing. Often these type of these pandemics, these type of disasters, natural or man-made, they are a kind of a wake-up call. Unfortunately, what is happening is public memory is short. Actually, in 2015, Chennai went through a very harrowing floods, which large parts of the city were inundated, and the entire public actually came together to in relief and rehabilitation measures. Now, we did find out later on that a lot of development actually happened on lake beds, low-lying areas, marshlands, swamps, and so on. And so it was essentially something that could have well been avoided. All of the natural drainage patterns of the city were actually built over. And 2 years later, there was a big hue and cry. A lot of publications came out. There were a lot of meetings, etc., etc. But 2 years later, we went back to doing the same thing. So the important thing here is how to sustain or how to retain the public memory of this particular pandemic so that the change that happens is much more long lasting. The second point here is there's a kind of ironical situation that we are seeing here. One is it's a well-established fact that the lesser that we build on the land, the lesser that we occupy of the earth, of the planet, it is more sustainable. So in other words, that's actually how cities became denser and there was compact living, so on and so forth. Now, in this pandemic, as we then realized the densification of cities has led to a lot of these problems and how the actual virus has actually spread, people are again moving back out, and there's going to be a growth of suburbia, there's going to be a growth of other townships, things are going to spread out, and our carbon footprint is actually going to go up. So there's a huge irony here, and I really don't have the answers to that. The third, which is kind of very important right now, is how we tackle or how we approach the situation. Technology, like Sean was saying, is actually something that is at our disposal now to come up with solutions. There's a project that we are now working on in Kerala, which is a mass housing project, which is using light gauge steel frame for construction. This is entirely prefabricated, like Mr. Raman Sika was mentioning. And there are almost about 56 locations where we are proposing this steel prefabricated construction for housing. See, steel prefabricated technology is very common for industries. It then started coming into a lot of commercial buildings as well, high rises, mid rises, and so on. But hitherto in India, it was not very well tried out or accepted in the housing sector, which is perhaps one of the largest forms of construction across the country. And so this is a pilot project that we are trying to put out, and it's just gone to tenders. So let us see how that works. If it is successful, it's going to be a big shot in the arm for technology, helping us design, helping us construct in a much faster and much more economical way, and thereby, lesser utilization of resources, and also a lot of recycling can happen in this. The fourth point actually is touches upon how we are actually going to literally like reboot and refresh in the coming months. And here, space and actually time is the boundaries of space and time are actually going to disappear. That research project, and actually that I was just talking about initially, is actually a research that we have been doing for me sitting here in Chennai, the Indian Institute of Science in Pune, Ashoka University in New Delhi, and the University of Cambridge. And there's an architect and then also a mechanical engineering professor in Cambridge, who along with all of us, we are all doing this research and trying to rehabilitate and retrofit larger spaces like marriage hall and exhibition centers into COVID wards, should a situation arise in the future. So here, it's the collaboration does not necessarily have to be face-to-face. It doesn't need to be in one single lab. It can be across geographical locations. It can be across time. And that is what we need to tap into. there is talent, there is an intent across different geographies of people wanting to come together to find a solution and make this place a better, make the world a better place to live in. And so that is something that we are going to see a lot more going forward. And so the like-minded people, we have to identify like-minded people, we have to identify talent and collaborate across geographies to help find solutions. And this particular paper and this particular research we are trying to take to the Government of India and also to the Tamil Nadu government to find ways and to actually implement that pilot project.
Thank you, sir. It was very, very comprehensive. Meanwhile, I got a question from architect Saurabh. His question is that one second. Don't you think, I think it's the same thing about the smaller cities. Don't you think it's time we develop smaller cities, 3-tier cities like Nagpur, Coimbatore, Kanpur, Jaipur, etc. If aim to be given better infra, then migration to the major cities would be lesser. Now, I think we can understand this. So I invite architect Ankur Choksi and architect Sean on this. But before that, let me bring in architect Ruturaj Parekh from Inside for a minute of introduction about this Inside, and we come back to about these questions. Again, it's coming to the smaller cities versus bigger cities, vertical versus horizontal. All those things we'll take up. Ruturaj, you, and then architect Ankur and architect Sean, please.
Hi. I have a thank you, Mr. Vikas. I have a small contribution to this. Actually, we are. I don't know. I think some of us we are meeting for the first time, but Ankur Arjun, who has just left for another meeting, we know each other from some time. So we are an architecture studio. We are based out of Goa, and a part of as an extension of our work, we are also deeply invested in creating content around contemporary architecture and design in India. So this series of with H&R Johnson, we have a long partnership now, almost 4 years, and it started with this small idea called Inside. So I have I've got 2 copies here. These are our journals. I think some of you must be aware of these. I'm not very sure. So and I can what has happened is in the past we also have created this wonderful digital platform called InsideReview.in. I think if somebody can help me share the screen, then I can show it briefly. But in any case, Inside we have sort of a partnership in partnership with Johnson. We created this platform to basically host ideas, stories, conversations around good quality, responsible contemporary architecture in India. And you can, I don't know if, can I share the screen? I can.
Yeah, you can do it yourself.
No, I think the host has disabled screen sharing. So I think somebody has to enable screen sharing for me. Yeah, so that's from me. And I think what has happened in the past, just to extend this a little bit, what has happened in the past 3 to 4. It's enabled. I'll share the screen. Sorry. So yeah, this is the wonderful digital platform I was talking about. It's InsideReview.in, and as you can see, it's a host of a lot of ideas on contemporary architecture, metal roofs, this beautiful essay by Hiren Patel, collaborative architecture, Indianness, material and materialism, young studio. So this is something that we are in the process of now developing and disseminating. If you have time, please review it. And excerpts from, so this is, I think, the 5th webinar in the series that we have been a part of through Johnson, H&R Johnson, who are hosts to these webinars. And a lot of content that is harvested, let's say, from these talks will go eventually on these digital platforms for much larger audiences through our newsletters, through our social media, etc. So that's what we are trying to do right now, and that's pretty much it from my end. Unless if there is anything else you would like to know, I'm happy to. Yeah, back to you. Back to you, Mr. Vyas.
Yeah. Yeah. Am I audible, please?
Yes.
Okay. 1 second. Hello. Okay. So architect Choksi, and the question was from an architect about what is your thought process about cities, and is it, my question added to this, is it going to happen? The smaller versus big and the vertical versus horizontal.
So should I go first or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So see, there are 2-3 things that come into the picture in the present situation. We have kind of privatization has been on the forefront for many years now in India, the economy, etc., and so forth. So the state has become more, had gone in so many years into the back burner. So the state was not in the forefront of major decision making in terms of development and stuff, apart from infrastructure. But now in the COVID situation, we have realized that the state holds a far more important role than the private entities. We were gravitating towards private entities, and we thought that private entities could do a lot of things. But now the state has become a very important agency to bring in, implement various new things. And I think the state today understands that it is not only about policy making. They have to implement large things in the interest of the country, and they really don't have a choice. They have to become more efficient, and they have to get these things implemented. So if we are looking at a reverse migration, the reason that the migration happened was because of economics, because of infrastructure, because of various other economic factors. Now, if that has to be reversed, and permanently reversed, then the state has to become a major factor. It is beyond the private organizations to really do much about this entire thing. So the policy making of the state has to be extremely robust, and the implementation of the policy making has to be extremely robust, extremely innovative, and responsible, so to say. Otherwise, like one of my other panelists said, memory is very short for human beings. And these people who are migrants, the kind of conditions that they were anyways living under, the kind of economic situations that they were under, they really don't have a choice. The choice is between death and food. There is nothing else beyond. There's no third option really over there. So these kind of people, if the choices are not given, they will again migrate back, and they will not have a choice about remembering things, the scars, the whatever other emotional or economic brunch that they've taken. They have to take that chance, because if they are starving in their villages, they will have to migrate. What choice do they have? So the state becomes a very important factor in making sure that the reverse migration doesn't happen. The second thing that really happens is about the war between automation and humans. So we are a very, very human-centric country. Human labor is extremely cheap. Now, I hope and I wish that this pandemic is really going to push us further into automation, robotics, this kind of efficiency, so that we move from being human-centric to being machine-centric, so that the machine does the machinery work. And we are not getting humans to we've thrown out human rickshaws, right? You used to have those human pulled rickshaws. People used to say at least that person is getting that job. But it is extremely derogatory to have a human being, you sit on the rickshaw and the human being is pulling you, right? So a lot of people are against automation, are against robotics, saying that no, where will these human beings go? The human beings will find ways to do other better, productive, more prestigious and more human jobs than doing jobs which the machines are supposed to do. So I hope and I wish that and I pray that we as a community, as a country, we move more towards automation and robotics, and human beings can do more cerebral work, because we are here to do more cerebral work. And I wish the society is perforce pushed towards that. So every time there has been a social upheaval, these kind of pushed changes have happened, and say for example, the World War II pushed us into industrial revolution. So we had to bring industries, we had to, get to that next level of production, that next level of efficiency, the next level of wealth creation. So I hope this pandemic really pushes us to that next level of wealth creation, where we as a country are not so human centric. I mean, the West is not, right? The human beings come at a cost. So they have, I mean, the simple things. My friends in the US all have hair cutting machines in the house. We Indians don't have, because it's so cheap to go to a parlor, right? So it starts from there, So automation is important. Robotics will come into industries, and I hope that this is brought in a lot into the construction industry. It has come into other industries in India, but construction industry is way behind in terms of automation and prefab and those kind of technologies that are supposed to come into, and it brings in a lot of quality. So I think Mr. Mistry will also know that a lot of things used to be done in the interior industry. So as against architectural industry, I would congratulate the interior industry having moved a lot into machinery driven outputs. Most of the large interior contractors today have very large equipments where they are creating equipments and creating output of machinery which are can be duplicated, can be produced at a large scale. But in our labor-centric architectural building industry, it has really not set in. So I hope this lack of labor pushes us towards that, and we do bring in a lot of automation into the building industry, so to say. That will bring a lot of quality, like Mr. Mistry was just saying that the quality of buildings in Mira Road or Daisar or whatever, wherever it is. The reason is also that there is a lot of handwork and human work that goes in. So the more we move into automation, the more we will be able to bring in productivity, the more efficiencies, the more generation in a shorter period of time, and the more creation of wealth, so to say. And I hope that the people who are going back into the various different cities are supported by the institutions, the governments, the NGOs, to be given today the amount of work before they again take trains to come back. Trains will keep going and coming and going and coming. Before the next set of trains come back again, I hope that they get the kind of ways of wealth generation in their own places, so that they don't have to come back to these filthy conditions and stay in these slums and these cities.
A quick reaction from architect Ankur Choksi, and then I move on to architect Arun Sikka on a more comprehensive thought process, to say, which is beyond built spaces. What about the people? It's a new question, which is, she's very right. To say, in terms of quality, in terms of dependency on so much of manual work, why not moving there? The country also, and its demographic and entire thing. So from that perspective, while I take your views, architect Raman Sikka, I move to Ankur Sikka for a quick reaction on what architect Sean has said. So for you.
Yeah, no, just for the discussion, I really want to look at it in a very different way, and that ties in back with a lot of the work that we do. And I'll start with this whole the fact what Sean, you also spoke about to start with is like today all of us are very in that sense in gratitude to the people on the street, the hawkers and the suppliers who've been actually providing us the daily needs in these times. And starting there, like somewhere I think this whole migration, if you look at, there are certain hand skills which have been there in our country, and especially in our country, it's rich of people who are very skilled in terms of how they work with their hands. And that's been dying over the last many years, decades. And in a way, that's created this completely reversed movement of people coming to the cities to seek work. And one of the pillars of our work is, where we try and empower local artisans, local skills, work with local craftsmen and kind of build them up. Like in projects, we've realized that we've actually been able to shift their perception of, how they perceive their job and the kind of self-esteem that they've been able to build after having done projects in the new times with their skills and upgrading the skills. So just a different way of looking at it. And I feel as architects or a community who's engaged in design, we have the opportunity, especially in our country, to empower these guys and work with them. Like we do a lot of hands-on work, even take positions with our contractors where we are very mindful of the respect and the manner in which they kind of operate with their teams and people who are working at the ground level. So I mean, it's just an idea that that's also something that we can influence, and we have the opportunity to actually shift that culturally across the segment. And I agree with you that people are not needed to do things which logically don't make sense for the human hands to do, but there are lot many other things that they can engage with, and that needs to be empowered. And probably that's something that design can be used for, and we can make it an engaging exercise in that manner where you're pulling them back into what they were really good at and where it really is meaningful and it brings in value. Like, for example, we've done things like we've taken stone workers from Rajasthan, moved them to Himachal, to train a team of local workers from there so that the work could be done from the region, because that skill wasn't available in Kangra anymore. The way they used to work with stone, people have over the years kind of lost that skill. Or for example, we've done a project with the government of Orissa. It's a building for the agricultural directorate, and we got them excited to kind of bring about 300 craftsmen on the building site and help dress up. We had actually created a public interface at the lower ground level of the building, and that whole area has been dressed up using about 300 craftsmen who were engaged. So the government kind of, in a way, became patron to these people and brought them back into and gave them a sense of pride. So just completely another very different perspective on the way this could be looked at and from a practice point of view. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Before I move to Architect Raman Sikka about the overall comprehensive view, and also I would add in that the question posed by Rahul Saxena, and he had asked the question to all the panelists. Any suggestions or solutions that you would like to suggest to the government that how the person reboot themselves and restart the new things. But before that, let me bring in Mr. Sarath Chandak. I think Ankur, your neighbor is here. He is heading H&R Johnson division of Prism Johnson Limited. Sarath, welcome all, and please be here with us. Meanwhile, for you, and then I want to address to this August gathering, and then I move to Architect Raman Sikka, please.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Ankur.
Hi.
While we'll speak to Architect Raman Sikka, before Sean was speaking, even after that, the question is that the automation also some way hurts, you can say, or influences the labor. There are a lot of techniques, like one of this could be maybe the logistics is a problem. Certain people remaining in situ can do a lot of good things, and those things can be brought in, or there could be more things. And the other question that I added was that what would you like to suggest to the government? So in a holistic approach, what will be your views? And then I move on to J.V. Mistry, please.
Well, trying to take a comprehensive overview of the COVID situation itself is a very big question. The answer will be extremely vague, but if I can just focus on construction-related issues. See, first, since you asked about what on a larger level we can think of, whether as a government or whether as a society or as a private players also, I think it's clear that on many levels our urban planning is not successful, it's failing. whether it is traffic, whether it is pollution, whether it is handling of floods or water or sewage, etc., etc. So, instead of pumping in money into already congested and old urban centers and cities, maybe this is the time to actually look at larger expansions around urban centers, new cities, new suburbs, new townships. There was, in fact, some of us will recollect, more than a decade ago, a large real estate developer in the country had started a dream, 100 cities of 100 acres each, all across the country. So that's the kind of vision that is required. That's the kind of initiatives which are required to make any kind of an impact. I mean, a size and a scale and a spread less than this will not really make any impact. So obviously government, of course, cannot be away from such a large initiative. It has to be supported, kind of helped by the government in many stages. So right from planning new kind of habitations, maybe including different kinds of activities, supporting the urban centers around it, having some offices, having education institutions also within them, with new policies also. See, policies have to be made for that, for the townships to be successful. They should not be restrictive. They should be more flexible, and they should be allowing people to be successful when they start a venture. So, right from planning level, I think that's the kind of initiatives which are possibly required across the country. If you talk of construction, yes, prefab of course is one, because especially as projects get larger, the uncertainty of labor and of quality at site cannot be handled. The project management does not allow you the flexibility to have these issues dependent on labor coming in, not coming in, how well they're working or not. So I think that's as the projects get more complex, size gets bigger, and especially as problems like this come up, we will see, I think, a very strong trend towards automation, as Sean was saying, and prefab, etc., which is good also, because let people focus, let people spread to other industries, let people contribute value in many different ways. Why should they only continue to do RCC work and brickwork the way we were doing almost 50, 100 years ago? So I think that's definitely required. And it is being done around the world. So why not in our country? I think as some of us are saying that memory is short. So I think we need also mechanisms to extend the memory. See, if you look at, there can be mechanisms, maybe either a stick or carrot or a combination. For example, building today have a sustainable rating, because the mechanism was made to give it a green rating. So that's why the sustainability is a stronger memory today. Similarly, smart is another, let's say a kind of a tag, which is given to a certain set of criteria that the building fulfills. So if you want a building to now go on to a further level of wellness, further level of safety, further level of flexibility for use, then maybe there's another tag required, which benefits the designers, the owners, the people who are using that building in different ways. So there has to be some kind of a mechanism to extend the memory, to extend the benefits of this opportunity. And then going on to, I think, design, I think it's a whole new field. The clients will tell us many things, which we have to listen, which we have to understand, find solutions for. Why should buildings be only serving one purpose? Why should airports, why should railway stations be only having shops for the passengers? Why should people in that area not be able to freely go and shop in an airport like people do it around the world? So these kind of things, why we cannot make buildings more multi-purpose, why we cannot do more innovation in planning and design of buildings the way we're doing it today. So these kind of things will have to be thought of. And of course, then the effect continues down to our private practices and design much down also.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jimmy Mistry, can we say that rather than a profound transformation, perhaps the pandemic will be merely refining our practices more, yet leave our fundamental approaches and values unchanged?
Before I answer that, I would like to continue from where Mr. Sikka left it. You know, government has a very important role to play. Government has always had a very important role to play, but now functioning and non-functioning of the government can be seen very apparently. For example, the real estate industry has been suffering. People have been, it's a bloodbath, and people have been shouting their throat hoarse, but the government didn't listen to them till last week, where they've allowed one-time restructure to be done, and that was announced, I think, day before yesterday or 2-3 days back. So government should have done this a couple of months earlier. Even without COVID, the industry was bleeding and suffering. When we are talking of getting in automation into construction industry, today, let us face the facts. Builders do not have money for manual labor, leave alone automation. I mean, this is the hard reality on ground. And the larger the name, the larger the bleed. It's a bloodbath, like I'm saying, I'm using the right word. It will take a lot of time for the industry to come out of it. Very critical for all of us in the design fraternity to put our daunting hats of design and focus. The problem causing areas like slums have to be thought of, and design fraternity need to raise to the occasion. Government projects are not designed by design architects. Government projects are designed by practically draftsmen. And that's where some of the projects, I'm not saying all the projects, I would not take away credibility from any of our panelists over here, but look at what has been done across to the city of Mumbai and SRA, and why has it been unsuccessful? And the kind of slum redevelopment buildings that are done by developers, because it's left to the whims and fancies, the architecture design. The SRA authority is not interfering. There is no authority. There is no public-private partnership like the Heritage Committee, where there's a public-private partnership. And since the time Heritage Committee is in place, things are 90% in order, because some of the finest names are there on the committee. The similar way in SRA, slum redevelopers, some slum hutmen's life needs to be changed. We are talking of human-centric design. Their rehabilitation needs to be understood in a more holistic manner. It is not about 300 square feet or 270 square feet that we are fighting over. But even in the 300 square feet, how can we think of doing a human-centered design around them in totality? Now, unless and until the government doesn't intervene, it's not going to be possible. The government needs to intervene to kickstart the economy. They've done a boost right now for the real estate industry, which will give some kind of a survival chance to the industry. Now they need to go ahead and do it to the hospitality industry. The whole industry is shouting their throat hoarse. Like I said, to the tune of risk of 30 to 40% of hotels will shut down, 50% of restaurants. And this industry employs more than overall construction and real estate industry. Construction and real estate industry is less than 7 to 8%. This is 9 to 10% of India's GDP. And this is at stake. Every hotel is saying 50% layoffs. Imagine where are these people going to go? So a couple of things again, government needs to interfere and intervene, and not just category A, B, C cities. C cities are already overflowing. So if you're talking of Nagpur, Nagpur is already overflowing. A lot of structural changes have been done in Nagpur in the last 15 years, thanks to the commissioner who got on there. But it still doesn't get the infrastructure it deserves for its growth into a proper metro center, the way it's one of our 4 or 5 metros. I come back to it again. Government agencies need to listen to the fraternity actively. Construction industry requires a huge boost, and real estate to come up. Without houses, we cannot have growth of this country. And proper housing and slum redevelopmentation is an inherent part of our problem as on today post this pandemic. So unless and until we do not do something about it, we will not see the positive change we wish to see. 50% of Mumbai is slums. And if these slums are not redeveloped properly in the manner they should be, we are creating only further issues for us at some point in time in the future. And we will keep talking of sustainability in a different direction. And whenever we talk of sustainability, it's only with the privatization we are talking of sustainability, never with the government projects, never with slum rehousing. So if you're talking of slum redevelopment happening in a sustainable manner, that's a different topic. That's what I would like to listen to architects talk. Now, these are some of the inherent factors which are going to decide the future of this country. Unless and until action happens on here, things won't change. So takeaway from this webinar, public-private partnership as far as SRA is concerned, there has to be a committee overlooking the design-centric approach of SRA. I'm least interested in the commercial approach. That SRA can do whatever they wish to do, developers can do what they wish to do. Design-wise, where slum developers will be rehoused, there has to be public-private partnership, and design and architects like us who will be more interested in their well-being will participate there. Second is government needs to do something with the real estate industry and the construction industry. Things have been in a real bad shape. What has happened to our migrant labor is pathetic. Developers have made statements that they've been taking care of their laborers. Yes, some developers have done a good job, but there are, by and large, look at Noida, look at whole of NCR. They've been left to fend for themselves, and their condition has been pathetic. So government needs to intervene and take out stringent measures to be able to come into implementation with immediate effect for construction, real estate, and hospitality industries.
Well. So naturally, it's not just COVID, but COVID has given us a chance to review a lot of things which have already been ignored. And एक धर्रा चला आ रहा था चीजों को करने का, एक सडन ब्रेक है जिसमें हो सकता है काफी कुछ थॉट लेवल पे चेंजेस आए, एंड वी विश दैट ऑल चेंजेस विल कम. आई टेक दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी टू इनवाइट Mr. Sarat Chandak here at this stage. Mr. Sarat Chandak, I was talking to Mr. Jimmy Mistry some time back, and he mentioned something that you guys should also try to bring some new product. I'm talking I mean, say on the product part of it. So anyway, I would like you to address for a couple of minutes, and then I go back to architect Raghuram and architect Ruturaj to sum it up and to take some more questions from the audience. Sharat, it's over to you.
Thank you, Dinesh. Good evening and a warm welcome to all the eminent panelists and all the participants on this webinar. And I'm also equally excited to listen to the views. I joined in between, so I could listen to Mrs. Sengupta and Ankur, and then next Mr. Mistry's views, and in between Mr. Sikka's also. So my 2 cents on this is we have been conducting a lot of webinars, and you guys also would be participating in a lot of that. So across this is, I feel that this one good thing has happened, that we at least have come onto a single platform across industry to debate in a meaningful way, to find out how our minds can be aligned onto a single goal or single objective. So that's at least something which is shifting towards all good, well-intentioned debates are happening across industries and functions. That is one change which I see very well accepted. Never before, and I have been in building material for the last 26 years, and never before I have seen those kind of interaction happening so frequently. So that's one of the good side of it. And there are very strong opinion and very strong that could be divided onto both sides of the column, but at the same time, these are divided opinions across, and that gives the policymaker at least, yes, people are talking to their voice and top of their voice about the sufferings and the whole economy. We are at least back by, who knows, maybe a most modest prediction could be about 3 to 5 years. So on that scale, if I look at, this is a big amount of unprecedented event which is caused to the entire India economy, and I'm not talking about global economy, where that also takes the dimension for all of us to bear the pain, and anything happens globally and we are not going to be left unscathed onto that. So when it comes to COVID and the post impact of COVID and how it is going to be rebooted and refreshed, I think, yes, there would be a lot of things rebooted and refreshed, and a lot of agencies are going to talk very differently. And it is all about which business is going to be taking this course as a stability measure, so that they pass through this difficult time and face for more opportunity time going forward, is going to be the game forever for next at least 3 to 4 quarters. And when it comes to public at large and customer at large and design fraternity and how things are going to emerge, we have very limited say with respect to only one aspect, that we have gone back to our R&D efforts. We think this is the right time to get into innovation mode. And we need to also think into what is Ankur's view is, what is that we can actually create sustainably better and design aesthetics locally. That is also is a right thought, and probably we become more sustainable with respect to and more dependable within our country than trying to import something from outside. We still can be aesthetically well-mannered, well measured with all those things in place. At the same time, automations, as I heard, is definitely yes. Health and hygiene is going to be top priority. So all this sum up together would and the responsibility towards the environment. All this is going to be the new lifestyle statement in a way going forward for each individual and each my fellow citizens as well. So I personally feel everybody would have a different challenges to face, but everybody would have their share of lifestyle statement to change as well. So lifestyle statements are going to be, habit change is definitely likely to be there. many people speculate about hand sanitizations and all those things. But I think small things are getting as a habits in mass scales across. So I think that is going to shape up the way we live life forward and try to find out the solutions surrounding our development and future. We keep seeing a lot of innovative ideas, but as of now, we think to get into something which is how do we reduce temperatures to inside the house by so that the air conditioner can be actually consumed less, and how do we get into more sustainable green product oriented so that we actually try to fetch our entire all the raw materials surrounding plants and try to score on the green so we actually get into less of the carbon print. And third is about, of course, the buzzword is about germ free and antimicrobial. So what all those products we can get into. So these are all things we have started working, and nevertheless we also try to bring into some kind of automations by like somebody I just overheard about prefab and precast and those things, so that mass standardizations and automation can take place. Having said that, the challenges as Mr. Mistry laid out is there with the builders to get into the best of the top of line equipments to get into automation mode and to get the realize those benefits are far stretched as an imagination today. But with a small part of as a manufacturer we would like to do is by getting to some standardized formats of how do we solve the problems of bathroom sanitizations, as well as something to do with the steps and how that can be standardized in a building and how can we contribute there. That is our working on, and we have clear with certain products and rapidly scale and likely to be getting back to with customers and design fraternity very soon in the next 3 to 4 weeks time. And I really feel this is a challenging time for everybody to innovate, everybody to think different, and it is collective measurements, collective efforts are definitely going to yield better results for all of us tomorrow, and that's the game going forward. I thank all of you for spending time and sparing this time with us. And I just take my pleasure in on behalf of Johnson, I thank you all again. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dinesh.
Thanks, Sharad. One more question has come up. What is the future of co-working space? But before I pose this last question of this thing, Architect Ruturaj, over to you to sum up and to take up something and maybe some few points you have, and then we.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Vyas. You know, I've been listening, so I have been listening since the first of the series of webinars, and this is the fifth one, I think. And you know, I have been kind of taking notes and trying to understand what are the common themes and what are the sort of you know, like Jimmy said, takeaways from these conversations, if at all. And you know, so I have to say that even for us as a small design studio working on you know, projects of different typologies and scales, what has become important, or the conversation that has become important in the last couple of months, has been how do we find a way to do something in an appropriately, you know, I mean, how do you justify one of the critical sort of thoughts that we have been dealing with is the idea that how do you justify excesses, you know, that have been whether excessive spending of resources, this whole idea of luxury, and how does it impact, how can we consider being responsible and not kind of you know, grossly indulgent, you know, how could we create an architecture that's not grossly indulgent or destructive to a certain point, and how do you make distinctions between you know, what we understand in India as essential architecture, you know, or essential design, and cut down on the sort of general clutter. But there are other ideas also. I mean, one idea that I think Ankur and brought up in this discussion, and which has also come up before, and is this distinction that we have to make between what we imagine as craft, or the ability of crafting something, and what we consider as labor, you know, sort of. So how do you in this time, how do you support a craftsman while also taking certain responsibility for the immense number of people who have been disenfranchised because of this. So, one of the panelists pointed out that this is not, I mean, we are only looking at the fault lines. It is not that the fault lines weren't there. I mean, we are just like this whole last 2 months have just exposed these fault lines to us and created these rifts which are much more clear to us now. There is also this whole idea of, there's this new consideration for the environment, and that is a common theme that has come across all panels. Not purely from the idea of being sustainable, but also being responsible, and being sort of trying to find ways to economize how we design and build, or how we, even in your case, Mr. Sharath, how you produce a product or an architectural sort of solution. And this also, I said, going back to R&D, and throughout all these webinars, I mean, one of the key concerns is also, like, if we as architects have to go back to R&D, where do we start? And what is that foundational knowledge that we have to go back to, let's say, to kind of cope with this? Not in a way that our reactions are momentary and limited to these difficult times that we are facing. I mean, this will obviously change. We have to see for better or worse. But how do we kind of rethink how we have located our practices and how we have located our processes, and how, as a fraternity, we have some sort of relevant responsibility towards what's happening, and we kind of become the part of the solution in some way. Mr. Raman pointed out urban planning. I think that's a huge failure. And also, Sean, you talked about government, and that has been a recurring theme in all these previous webinars. I mean, you cannot outsource the responsibility to private enterprises, or the responsibility towards your people to private enterprises. That's just, and governments who have come forward, public enterprises who have come forward and confronted this pandemic have come out successfully. I mean, there have been, of course, failures. So yeah, and lastly, I think in general, I have also been observing that very close to what Raghu Ram pointed out, is that will be a shift of workflows and the way we used to interact with our within our offices and outside in sites, whether it is the use of prefabrication or off-site fabrication, and or whether it is just trying to create efficiencies which are not traditionally dependent on our ways of working or our ways of looking at the world. So that is another takeaway, I think, for me personally, that it's also the, I mean, how do we critically look at resource in general, whether it's human resource or material resource, and how does it translate into how can we kind of use this time to maybe rethink our commitment and to preserve these resources and use them more responsibly, or deploy them more responsibly, so that we also, in some way, when we come out of this, hopefully soon, find that we are not going back to the world as we knew, and we do see a changed world, and perhaps a more responsible one, at least from our end. So yeah, that's my bit, and thanks a lot for Mr. Vyas. Back to you.
So there's a last question, as I said, what's going to happen for co-working spaces, Architect Ankur and Architect Sean, and then quick closing remarks from Architect Raman Sikka and Architect Raghuram.
So I'll talk from the perspective of some of the challenges that have come up for us, and I'm starting there because there is a piece of the experience of being in a physical space that matters, and I'm taking this idea of co-working space in the context of the culture that we kind of we strive to build in the organization. So there's this idea of a collaborative culture, and one of the key factors in that is, the kind of interactions that people have, and the nature of interactions, and the level of engagement one can create. So, I mean, obviously, over the last few weeks, we've been questioning how are we going to resume work. So we've been questioning people about how is it different working from home, working versus working from the office. And I think the same kind of questions will arise, and probably the answers will seek out, the idea of what can that space create for the people in terms of the experience, interaction, what can it actually enable or foster for everyone to be in that space together. And yeah, you'll start measuring the success and the value of the physical space, and look at that as a core driving factor to, as a business model for the co-working space, and also as a design parameter, probably. Yeah.
Would like to add, Architect Sean?
Yeah, so I mean, I would like to start from basic office, the requirement of office per se, and then move on to co-working spaces, because if you require offices, then you get into co-working spaces. So I think offices are going to move from, the default morning to evening action to a need-based activity. Only if you require to go to an office for a specific purpose, which could be, physical interaction or whatever, because now we see as in right now we are doing, technology helps us in design interactions. We've been doing design interactions for our projects, where somebody from the US, somebody from Singapore, and somebody from India, the client is sitting out of China, various discussions are happening. So we kind of been pushed to the point where in virtual spaces we have been collaborating with each other. So I don't think offices are going to be a space even for collaboration. Needless to say, it will not be the 9-to-5 activity. We can all work from our houses, where, I mean, talking about offices and offices. Industries obviously is a different ballgame altogether. But only if we think that offices are important, do we then get to co-working spaces. You see, human beings are gregarious animals. We like to collaborate. We like to stay together. Emotionally, we like the physical touch. We want to be with each other. So I think we are going to gravitate slowly and steadily back into office spaces where we are all meeting to over a coffee. And of course, medicine is going to help us get there. There's nobody else who will be able to help us get there. And I'm sure that medicine will help us get there someday. Coming back to the specific question about co-working spaces, again, co-working spaces will be used only when it needs to be used. Only when, I physically need to meet probably 10 other people, will I go there, sit there and work, because there's seriously no other reason for me to risk it and go all the way to a co-working space and work out of that space. In any case, most of the projects across, and it's not about architecture, it's across industry, there is collaboration happening from various locations. Even in a specific office from various cities of India, people are collaborating. So physical connect is not required. Only, I think, when there are these HR issues and, HR events that are created, that happens when people will actually get to a certain space. That also there is, I mean, your guess is as good as my guess as to when we will come to the day when physically we are able to get to a space when all of us can again get together like those old days. But the tenacity of human beings is such that we will get there. I mean, we've seen the Black Death, we've seen the Spanish flu, we've seen all of that, right? And we've come over it, and we have again got back to us, because our inherent sense of human beings is that we cannot stay alone. So that overriding factor overrides everything else. Society, economics, everything. So that tenacity is going to pull us back to offices, because, I mean, that's what we do in the larger part of our lives. Post evening is a different thing, but all work, right? So there is going to be a design change in the short term, but in the long term, we will all be back to offices. We will all be working together, because That's how human beings work.
True. Well said. Well said. And maybe with additional safety measures, some things will become a part of our life. And
absolutely.
So I would request now Architect Raman Sikka and then Architect Raghuram to summarize. And so it's for Architect Raman Sikka first, and then Architect Raghuram to close up. सिक्का साहब आपका माइक्रोफोन ऑफ है जी.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was saying that much as the society and all of us are quite eager to get back to normal working, normal situation, what we call. But I think we should, and be happy to see that we use this opportunity for change and to pause and rethink. As your title of this webinar is to reboot and refresh. I think it's an opportunity which we should not lose out. And I think that reboot and refresh can happen at multiple levels, whether it is as a person, whether we're taking care of our personal health in terms of spiritual or physical well-being, whether as a family, whether we are spending enough time, finding the right focus. As a professional, are we doing enough innovation? Are we thinking afresh every time we get a project? Or are we trying to contribute to the profession at a wider level? As a society, are we taking care of the people who actually make the society work? Which we were talking about earlier in the discussion. How does the society work, and is it really contributing to the gradual upliftment of everybody in the society? These are issues which I think all need to be rethought, and I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to refresh and reboot our thinking on these issues. If we lose out, if we don't, then we will get back to normal. That's okay. But I think that's the chance that we have, and it's actually all these small daily actions which we keep doing. They are going to make the bigger picture sooner or later. If you want to change the bigger picture in 5 to 10 years from now, we must start improving our daily actions immediately.
Well said. Thank you so much. And finally, I ask Architect Raghuram to sum it up, and then Architect Ruturaj and Sharat for vote of thanks. Yeah. Architect Raghuram.
Yeah. Thank you. Actually, are you able to hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
See, actually, I have great faith in the resilience of the human race. I just want to refresh a memory of not so far back in 1994 when actually the plague broke out in Surat and also in parts of Gujarat. And today, Surat is one of the cleanest cities in the country. Indore and Surat is one of the cleanest cities. They are role models of cities. So there is always an opportunity and a possibility that the human race will bounce back, cities will bounce back, and the core of human existence will always, the values of a human existence will always eventually triumph. Now, the second is, it's not always about the density of cities that is the problem. It does contribute. The current problem is in some ways a result of some of the density of cities. But if you take Tokyo, if you take Manila, these are all as dense as perhaps Mumbai is. But why is that Tokyo is not a hotspot? Why is Mexico City not a hotspot? Is because of certain management of the city, the management of the different social and economic hierarchies in the city that has been successful, that they have been able to contain a lot of the disease. Seoul, for instance, South Korea, it was one of the earliest that were hit by the coronavirus pandemic. But today, Seoul is one of the is a good story, is a positive story. So in many ways, it is about how you manage the city that is actually going to make a difference. There have been a couple of questions that have been coming up on the panel, in the chat window, about how technology can actually reach, or how automation can actually reach these smaller tier towns which don't even have basic infrastructure. Actually, here again, that's the magic of technology. The project that we've been working with, I talked about the prefabricated housing in Kerala. It is across 56 locations, 14 districts. Some of the most backward and most getting to those locations itself is a huge problem. but we are using technology to reach and create housing for those particular districts. So actually technology cannot be underestimated in finding solutions. And then there was another question that came about the growth of second and third tier towns. Here again, here in Tamil Nadu, there's been an ongoing discussion between the private sector and also the government on how to on what is the way forward for the economy in the state. And one of the key takeaways of that discussion was the increase in infrastructure spending and increase in investment by the government in second tier towns like Coimbatore, Madurai, Trichy, Tirunelveli, and some of these other cities in Tamil Nadu. And the private sector was very clear. They said they asked the government to just facilitate the growth of these towns. And then they said the rest they will take care of, which again comes back to this whole collaboration between at a macroeconomic scale between the private sector and the government. So if you actually sum it up, there are opportunities ahead of us. And I think there's a call to action. And I think each of us in our own ways, and as all the panelists have actually said, is like stepping out and creating and making a difference through these many, many different ways.
Raghuram, Mr. Sarath Chandak, and then architect Ruturaj to sum it up and thank everyone.
Thank you, Dinesh. I could really, I regret that I missed the initial part of the discussions. It's been quite interesting. And I heard all the great amount of thoughts and cross opinion across. So I come from the business background, so I don't have very great amount of understanding about architectures and those stuff. So still, I feel the fundamentally, as Ruturaj laid out, is the concept of essential architect. Similarly, there is on the economic side, there is also the concept of essentials, what we want to have, what we must have. So today, the economic of the country in such a situations in all strata is every strata has got a different requirement. So everybody would be evaluating those things on what I must have and what I want to have. So on that basis, all decisions are being taken. So obviously, any small decisions, every individual takes a decisions for his choices he choose. So those actually forms a cycle for the whole economy. And as Raghuram I heard about the comments on the economy. So I do also echo the same sentiments of resilience of as Indians particularly. And we have come up into many of the fights in past, including one of the toughest depressions, which is a recent economic depressions of, I was just reading through in 1978-80, and we come up, that was the first time we degrew by more than 5% negative GDP. So if we look at all those things, and today the prediction is about something negative of 1 to 2% GDP. So it could be, worst scenario could be a 5. So we are going back to the level of what we were in 1978 and 80s, but you will come up from that labels because the entire dimension has changed. The economics are different. There are dimensions which are, those times it was not so governed by the global economy. And today, once you open the door in 1991 to the global economy, you don't have much of choices left with you to do something on the economy. And having said that, the GDP contributes, the constituents of the GDP, very few states contribute about 60% of the GDP. So it's about some cities are doing fairly well and some cities are not. So it's all about, we at times of reading GDP, we read about those numbers of 5%, 6%, but at the same time, couple of states contribute too high onto the GDP scale and a couple of them are much behind. So it's all about all holistic approach. This is the reboot and refresh time. Would be the policy maker, if at all, through all standardize of policy decisions they would be taking. And that might create some amount of opportunity to bridge this gap. So that is the way forward for any economic growth in the country. And I personally thank each of the panelists on behalf of Johnson for joining us here. And I thank you, Dinesh. Thank you, Ruturaj, for organizing this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sharath. Thank you, Mr. Actually, I don't do much, I think it's your team which is doing all of it. So I show up, I'm just trying to be there on time. So I think a lot of
quite encouraging on that part, being modest with Raj.
No, I have to acknowledge that there's a lot of effort also we have seen, I mean, consistently over the last 5 webinars, a lot of good audience to these talks, these discussions. So I mean, my hope is, and as we put this out, this is also live, I think on the YouTube, and I think when we put the excerpts or let's say transcripts of these out, I hope that there is greater audience to this, because a lot of this, before, I think the difference is that before these past 2 months, every time when I used to be either in audience or as a part of these discussions, a lot of it used to revolve a lot around lifestyles, and but the conversation has fundamentally changed. That suddenly you can see that even the very idea of what do you mean when you say lifestyles and things like that has changed. So that's I believe that's what all other panelists have reflected, that that's the core difference. And I think if we are able to, I hope that we are able to change the conversation to a better one, then there is some silver lining to this. This
I agree with you. See, we as any kind of this kind of unprecedented situations, we first face and we have a denial mode, and we have a anger mode.
Yeah.
And we have somewhere the bargaining mode. Then we have acceptance mode, and then we want to live along with it. So that's how any of the unprecedented situations happens with the human cycle. So this is, I think, we are moving in those directions, and more fruitful dialogues are likely to emerge going forward as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
so with this, I thank you all the eminent panelists, and I will be sharing your slides, these slices out of this video with you very soon. Thanks again. Thanks, Ankur. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Sarath.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Oh. बिना चश्मा लगाए के तो देख रहा है हमको। नहीं, वो ऐसा लगा नहीं मुझे। अच्छा।
MC, 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 MC.